It's just Wig 284 Tales of the Jedi. Why is it Tales of the Empire? That would have been. We're not talking
Tales of the Jedi. Oh,
Tales of the Empire.
So this is the second version.
Welcome to Was It Good, the podcast that reviews movies and TV shows. I'm Ravi, joined by my two brothers,
Krishna.
Arjuna.
And we're talking Star Wars, Tales of the Empire.
And we are. Was it good?
And he's still doing that, even though we told him multiple times, stop doing that.
Stop it.
This is my triumphant return to the pod, so.
Yeah.
You know.
Jen, did you listen to last week's by chance?
I haven't listened to all of it, but I have been pushing my way through.
Because pushing your way is a slog, huh? I will say we did blame you for everything about the top. Well, that's all. We've disappeared. It's all Juna's fault.
Last week's pod obviously being Civil War, so definitely go take a listen to that one.
Civil War.
Here's my spoiler. I would have said
Civil
no.
War.
I would have said no. It was not good because they just didn't spend enough time really diving into the dynamics of Iron Man and Captain America and why they were fighting each other. You know, I didn't get enough of that. So for me, it's a no.
You know what's funny? I know we're not talking Civil War, but when you compare Civil War and then Captain America Civil War, one ends happy, one doesn't end happy, and the one that I wanted not to end happy ended happy, and the one that should have ended happy, that would have been nice, didn't end happy. It makes sense if you think about it.
It does.
I wrote you a letter.
I know we're not talking that. If people want to hear more on that, just go listen to last week's pod. Tales of the Empire, though. It's
Star Wars.
It's a short 6-episode run. Each episode roughly 15 minutes. You can get the whole thing done in, about, hour and a half, 2 hours. The first 3 follow everybody's favorite evil witch, Morgan. And the second half follows everyone's favorite fallen Jedi, Barriss.
Barriss Offee.
Barriss Offee. I think right off the bat, usually we do like one-word impressions and things like that. I just want to know from the group, like, which arc did we like more? Did we like the first arc or the second arc? Is it even fair to ask that question?
No, it's not fair. It's not fair at all. The second arc was so much better. I was like, maybe this is going to be controversial.
Ooh. I would have said Morgan's was better.
Oh,
yeah, I was going to say Morgan's was way better.
Dude, no. I thought the Morgan arc was so obvious.
Sure.
I was like, the nothing in that was like surprising, and I was like, I get it. Was still good. It was still good, but
sure,
it felt familiar. It felt obvious. The second arc I thought was more interesting because I know far less about that character than Morgan, and so. To me, that was like a new story, even if that's not a new character, if that makes sense.
Why do you guys keep saying Morgan? Isn't it just Morgan?
It's Morgan, yeah.
Morgan, when you put a little sauce on it, because it's Star Wars and it's space fantasy, it also makes you sound educated. Oh, Morgan. She's French.
Morgan Elsbeth. Elsbeth.
I'm shocked. I guess, Ravi, that was a good question to start off with.
I honestly thought we were all going to say the first part, Morgan's arc, because maybe it's because I'm a Thrawn stan, but I thought you were a Thrawn stan, Christian. So I would assume that you would have been like, oh, I like this arc because Thrawn's there. And to be fair, I think you are right. Like the story that we got in Morgan's in terms of like what's happening in the universe, we kind of knew these things were happening. I think it's just kind of cool to see it. And also, again, I think it's kind of cool to see Thrawn and how he thinks. And like, I don't know, I would argue like the first 3 episodes were like a big advertisement for like why the Empire is cool as shit, which is bad.
I also thought the first arc for Morgan added a lot more context, right? Like Morgan, we'd really only gotten in season 2 of The Mandalorian and then in Ahsoka, but this added a lot more depth and dynamics, I thought, to that character, which were like interesting for me at least to see like why she kind of was the way she was, how she came to be work with Thrawn, and everything. And she's a character that's still out there, right? And whatever the future holds for that storyline. So I thought that was interesting, and I thought it was cool to kind of see that dynamics. Barriss is also an interesting character. She's someone that we got in the Clone Wars, but I just thought Morgan's was just interesting. And it was just kind of cool to see the different clans on her planet and the different powers that they had too. Like I thought that first episode was really interesting. I'm just like, holy shit, what is this power that the mountain people have? Like it's really
I think it's
sick.
like the bubble power.
Yeah.
They blow bubbles.
They blow bubbles. It's pretty powerful.
The Bubble Puff Girls.
Hey, don't knock it. I love bubbles. I have 5 bubble machines, so
it's also just funny to see like how insanely dark Star Wars can get. Like she brings the 3 like women as well to get the weapons, and then like one just immediately gets shot, is dead,
right?
And then the other like blows up and also dies. And it's just like, yeah, this show is brutal in a lot of ways. This is war. So I thought that was really effective too.
Also, just General Grievous is,
oh yeah,
his insane laughter as he's running around chopping down, all the Night Sisters, and he's laughing about it.
When he stabs her mom, and he's just laugh. Like, was that the most capable we've ever seen General Grievous? Because typically he loses and then runs away.
Yeah, no, the invasion attack. The invasion of the Night Sisters is probably peak General. Like he himself, when he was done, was like, I've like done a good job. Like when you go to the office and you like you do that presentation and you're like, I did a really good job. That was Grievous in that moment. Which is
like, I did it. He's like, Daddy. He's like, Daddy, I did it.
Daddy Dooku.
Yeah. Daddy Dooku.
I did find it interesting that the first arc was named what it was, which was Path of
Fear,
Path of Anger, Path of Hate, and that just mirrors the line that Yoda tells to Luke: "Don't start down the path of the dark side," because, and then he says, hate leads to anger, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And in the very second arc, we get a direct contradiction of that very statement, because Barriss not only shows you going from the Jedi to the Sith back to something else entirely, which is what to me, the Force has always been the most interesting part of Star Wars, the spiritual aspect. And so that's personally, I think, why I was probably more drawn to the second arc. And I also just like how they set up between Barriss and Lin, that sort of that arc, if you will, between those two characters. I thought that was really well done. And bringing also like not only Barriss redeeming herself, but also redeeming a seemingly irredeemable character, which to me also offers a very mature conundrum in the Star Wars universe. Lin is someone that we see brutally murder an entire village, and the fact that Star Wars is like, yeah, even that character can be redeemed. It's a very interesting message, especially in today's day and age. I thought that was maybe the most interesting sort of message that Star Wars has maybe ever put out. You're making kind of a statement there.
I mean, Darth Vader
I'd push back on that
murdering
one.
Children.
Yeah, Anakin, we saw. I mean, when the original trilogy came out, there was none of this expanded stuff. All people had back in the olden days.
No, that's a good point. I forgot about
episode
Anakin.
4, 5, and 6, right? And you had this father figure who was basically, even though like we never see him push the button or do like mass murder, it's always implied. And then you see this redemption thing. So I think Star Wars has always kind of tried to, or I think Star Wars gets good when it pushes the idea of what can you redeem.
Morally interesting conundrums. Yeah. I think that's what it is. Like we lit like the on screen, and you don't necessarily see her like you don't see like actual blood flying and heads coming off, but like very like heavy implications there. The lightsaber comes through the wall, and you hear the screams, and then you see the dead bodies afterwards. I was like, ooh.
Sound design for these 6 episodes was peak. Like, I mean, again, to your point of like the brutality of what we saw, they really made sure like their sound design added to that kind of tease and adding to the fear and the like disturbing nature of like what is being kind of teased or presented, right? Without actually showing you, which is, that's good horror, right? The greatest horror is not showing the evil monster, but being scared by its shadow, its noise, etc. And I think
having the viewer create the horror in their own mind.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought the animation too was just like incredible, and it makes me think back to Ravi when we saw the original like Clone Wars movie in 2008, and we walked out of the theater and we were like, Star Wars is over, it's dead, because like the animation was really crap and that story was just terrible, and just to see how far they've come with that kind of Clone Wars style animation, there were just some shots where I just kind of paused it and I was just like, that looks like a picture, or that looks like real almost.
Yeah, real is
the Darth Vader. The scene of Darth Vader with the side profile and like the reflections in his helmet, I was like, it looked like almost photorealistic. And I was like, oh my goodness. Crazy. Yeah.
It's also interesting because Lynn is a character that we saw in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Yeah. Terrible show. And I just had to put that out there. And there were definitely parts where my brain was doing this thing where I was like, wait, did they just like use clips from that show and it's just real, or is it actually like CG? Because obviously there's heavy prosthetics in the show and it's obviously not real and etc. and whatever. But there was definitely this weird moment where there were some shots where I was like, the fighting sequences with Barriss and Lynn, some of that lightsaber movement felt very natural in terms of like two humanoids actually fighting. Very similar to the final episodes of the Clone Wars when you have Maul and Ahsoka fight, and that was the start of where they've taken this animation next level, where they're doing like true mocap with martial artists and bringing that into the animation, which is just makes it top notch. Which brings me into my one word impression, which is going to it's going to be top tier.
That's just 2 words.
Nope.
He's pushing them together.
I'm just changing it up. Top tier. Top tier. And again, like I think we've already kind of summed it up. Like based solely on just the animation, sound design, this is peak like Star Wars animation. I don't think you get better than this. And then when you bring in the fact that these stories are very different. One is the story of showing pure hatred, and then one is showing redemption. I think they match very, very nicely. Because I was talking with someone, and there was a fear that this was just going to be one 6-episode propaganda of like why the Empire is so cool and being bad is great. And like from the trailer, I could definitely understand why you may think that. But then when you watch the whole thing and see, the full arc of Barriss and everything, you're like, oh wait, no, this is a redemption thing, which you need. You need that for sure. Who wants to go next for that one more impression?
Well, you're the host. You gotta call it. So.
I don't have to.
Just call it out.
As brothers, we typically just yell and try and be louder than the other. So I assumed that was going to happen.
We are more mature now.
Arjuna, you can go ahead.
Okay, my one-word impression
Actually,
is...
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
All right.
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
And that's the end of my one-word impression. My one-word impression will actually be one word and not 2 words smushed together. My one word is deeper. I felt like this second season of the Tales, franchise, if you will, went a little bit deeper than Tales of the Jedi did. I like Tales of the Jedi, but, Ahsoka is a character I felt like we had a lot of backstory on already, and while her episodes were good, I didn't feel like I necessarily learned a lot more. And then for Dooku, again, it's a character we know a lot of. It was cool to see him, with Qui-Gon and training him and to see his fall to the dark side. But again, it was just like, that was more cool than necessary. While both of these characters there are big gaps in their stories. This felt like a lot of new information that we learned. So it felt like we were going a little bit deeper. I also just kind of liked the parallels a little bit between the 2 seasons, right? There was a story for each season of someone falling to the other side. Dooku falling from a Jedi to the dark side, and a dark side person in Barriss falling back to the light side. So I did like kind of the parallels there. Parallel was my other one-word impression nominee for those who care. But we went with deeper because you gotta go deep.
Wow.
Get it in.
Wow.
Deeper.
My one-word impression is going to be suffering. Because I was more than a little annoyed that the 4th episode wasn't the path of suffering, just to finish the the sentence. I was like, no, damn it. It doesn't make sense. Obviously, they couldn't do that because it was a 3-episode arc. But I was like, you should just made it 7 episodes. I had one more Morgan episode and called it Path of Suffering. God damn it. But
couldn't you argue though that Ahsoka, like her role in Ahsoka, especially where she ends,
absolutely,
is her period of suffering now.
Absolutely, and that's that makes perfect sense. I just wish they would have put in a 5-minute episode interlude.
The stories they're telling in Tales of the Empire 2 are more open-ended than Tales of the Jedi, right? In terms of there is a lot more. Like, Barriss is not dead at the end of her episode arc, right? Like Lynn is going to get her out, and they're going to, in theory, survive.
It's Star Wars.
Morgan's story is still ongoing, right? As we talked about in Ahsoka, like she's returned now back to the proper galaxy with Thrawn, and they're about to just like unleash hell on the universe. Spoiler alert: we know that fails because Thrawn is nowhere to be seen in the sequel trilogy, or in some ways doesn't work out. Maybe the way they think it's going to work out. So it feels like there's more story to tell. So maybe that's again part of the reason why that's left out. It almost feels like if they wanted to do a direct follow-up to this season, they could, with more for these characters.
I actually have I have a bold prediction not related to Tales of the Empire, if anyone wants to hear it.
Sure. Is it like Star Wars related?
It is Star Wars related. It's Thrawn specific. So your statement about, surprise, Thrawn's big destruction plan fails because we don't see him in the sequel trilogy. I think Star Wars I think what they're going to do with Thrawn specifically, I think Thrawn is going to get sent into another galaxy. He's going to miss out on the sequel of the 3 movies and Palpatine's return. And this Rey movie trilogy thing, whatever that's coming, he's the big bad for that. He's going to return a second time.
Yes.
Somehow Thrawn returns.
Again.
Oh, man, that would be hilarious.
That would be pretty funny, but I also feel like that will happen. So,
yeah.
Just because, like, there's so much. Thrawn is. They have somehow, in some weird way, and maybe this was intentional, maybe it wasn't, but they've made like Thrawn this weird, like
Thanos type of character.
This like villain that people like and find like
he's charming,
attractive. They find him intriguing, interesting. It's a weird thing.
He's a smart guy.
Thrawn for sure.
Listen, intelligence is sexy.
Thrawn.
But yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. He's going to be either the main villain or he's going to be the thing that brings the baddies into the Star Wars galaxy or whatever. Like, I think he is heavily involved in some way because Star Wars has always been about the whole idea of the connected story, right? And they're not. I just don't believe they're going to come up with a brand new villain outside of anything and have no reference to it or little drops. And I think this is an easy way to like make you care about this enemy because there's this guy that you find really interesting who
I think Thrawn is more likely the big bad of the Mando movie if there's going to be like a movie that he's a big part of, which
that does make more sense.
Should we put money on it?
Logical.
Yeah,
we don't need to put money on it.
Yeah,
$400.
Let's do $5.35.
Why 35?
I don't know.
I don't like 35.
535.
I like. How about 515?
How about 501? The 501st.
There we go. $5.01. Done.
Boom. All right. So $5.01. I'm saying that we'll see Thrawn in the Rey movie or trilogy. And Arjuna, you're basically saying that Thrawn will be dead at the end.
I'm not saying he'll be dead. I'm just saying I think he's being set up for this Mando movie. That makes the most sense with the timeline of where we're at with like Ahsoka and Mando.
Then during Filoni's taken that guy on as his own, right? Like he appeared in Rebels. He's now appeared in the Tales, and now he was in that other show.
Wait. Speaking of Filoni, real quick. So you know how Filoni has said that like Ahsoka to him is like his daughter. Is Thrawn then like his weird creepy uncle?
No, his brother. Thrawn's like his older brother that he's been trying to stick it to.
I'm gonna go. It's his lover.
Oh. That's a good one. Yeah, they're about the same age. That could work. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Maybe he saw the Blue Man Group years ago and was really like,
whoa. Wow. Well, Thrawn, Thrawn existed before Filoni, right? I mean,
that's what's the author's name?
Timothy Zahn.
Timothy Zahn's creation, yeah.
Yeah.
So Timothy Zahn and Dave Filoni.
They brought back Timothy Zahn to write the
books,
the Disney run books,
right?
For Thrawn. So he has the updated trilogy. Yeah.
Does anyone know if Filoni worked with Timothy Zahn at all for Rebels or Ahsoka?
I mean, I didn't see him credited anywhere, so
it's minor.
If only we had these things called computers.
Computer. Coffee.
Powerful. Credit. I'm literally Googling this as we talk.
I mean, it like the only thing like the top things a Reddit comment. I don't know how much believability, how much stock you can put into that. But I mean, what I'm saying is that Timothy Zahn expressed his confidence in Dave Filoni.
He did meet, so there are
they've had a few conversations, but I don't think
there are interviews with Filoni that says that him and his team met with Zahn a couple of times during Rebels specifically. So,
and that was the first time we saw Thrawn, so that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Cool.
Getting back into Tales of the Empire, though, how do you guys feel about, obviously, Clone Wars, this big, massive undertaking of animation storytelling? It jumped from Cartoon Network to Netflix to Disney Plus. Create an entire, in my opinion, there's an entire generation of Star Wars fans because of the Clone Wars. Filoni continued it on with Bad Batch, which is also coming to an end. We'll definitely be doing a pod at some point. He's continuing this animation style now with the Tales of, obviously we had Tales of the Empire, Tales of the Jedi, now we have Tales of the Empire. Do you guys like the short form, or to Christian's point where it feels like they could have added just a little bit more, with the path of suffering? If that
was more of a joke.
No, I get that, but at the same time, if this was more traditional 10-episode miniseries at 30 minutes an episode, is that something you want, or keeping it short like this? Does this work?
I personally really dig the short format because, especially, again, I'm going to come back to the Barriss arc. I thought they did such an amazing job of fitting in so much depth into essentially 40 to 45 minutes. Like you almost see the whole second half of this character's life, or a huge chunk of this character's life, and 3 pivotal moments, if you will, that sort of just beautifully create this story that you can tell in 40 minutes with those 3 episodes, right? I think if you go longer, it sounds weird, but I think you dilute that a little bit. You lessen the impact. So if they're going to continue with the tales, I think they should keep the format as is. I really dig the 6-episode, 2 different characters, real quick snippets. It's kind of like it's like vignettes, right? These short style slice of life, yeah. And it's more impactful the shorter they are.
Slice of life with the Empire.
In fact, maybe they should get shorter. Maybe we should get down to 30-second episodes eventually.
Oh, just make little tiki talks.
Yeah, I think what they're doing with these is it's you're thematically looking at these characters' lives, right? These pivotal moments, and kind of take them into certain directions. And I thought what was so effective about Empire was, again, you're taking these characters that you know some information about, but you don't necessarily know all of their motivations. I mean, with Barriss, we're going to her future, right? We only knew to her present of being imprisoned in Coruscant. We didn't really know what happened to her afterwards. With Morgan, we knew what the character was in the present of the Mandoverse, but we didn't know necessarily how she got there. And so I think that this stuff kind of fills in some of that background, and it almost feels like bonus content in a lot of ways, right? It's not necessary to understand the greater stories, but if you want to be kind of enhanced and enriched, this is a good way to do it. And it's a digestible way to do it too, right? I think asking people to watch a whole season of Morgan for 10 episodes, 30 minutes, 300 minutes, which is 5 hours of content.
A lot of people would be out.
I think a lot of people would be out. But if you're here's 45 minutes of content, people are like, okay, I'm in. Like, this is like dinner, right? This is like watching a show or something. Like, that's kind of easy to do. And I feel like this is the way to do some of that stuff. And then, from the business standpoint and the marketing standpoint, you can expand. If Morgan is like super popular now, right? If they're like, oh my God, like people really love this, they can do more. They can like expand her character into more and more things.
It's almost like a testing ground.
Yeah. Or if they're not popular, you're like, well,
we tried it.
We told the story we need to tell, so that's kind of it. Yeah. So I think it's a win-win, and I appreciate the different ways of storytelling, and I think that's really cool to do. I think, I love Clone Wars. It's too long. It's like 150 episodes. How many episodes are filler and how many are like not great? Like there's quite a bit. Those first few seasons are not good.
I always tell people start at season 3 and halfway through season 3 of Clone Wars. But even then it's like there's so much filler in there.
There's a lot of like not great stuff, and that was like an old form of television where it's like you get your 22 episode season order and you have your consistent work year round, and I get some of that stuff. I get like the business standpoint, but I think from a creative standpoint, it really was just like, I mean, I think we've made the joke before. It's like there's enough episodes of Clone Wars where like every single day of the Clone Wars from every single planet with every single character should be pretty much accounted for in that 2-year span.
Oh man.
So that makes a good point though, Arjuna, when you compare this to like Clone Wars. And Clone Wars was obviously, it was put on linear TV, 22 episodes, filled with commercial breaks, mostly toys for kids. Because Clone Wars, at the end of the day, was put on Cartoon Network to start. It was made for kids. This being on a streaming service, this being much more violent. Like if I was a parent, I don't know if I would want my kids watching this because of how violent it is.
Yeah,
would you say that the Tales series are for kids still, young adults?
Young adults.
I'd say for older kids. I'd say for like teens.
Yeah, like the people like you would give a YA, a young adult novel to, like probably that crowd, right? Like they're about to be teenagers, like 12 and up. That feels right.
Yeah.
If I was a parent, if my kid would need to be in like middle school or entering high school. I think for
my kid would need to be drinking like 21 before they could watch it. No,
this is why you're
Ravi, you do realize what you just said? You've become the very thing you swore to destroy when you were a child.
What's that?
But you know, like having your parent be like, "You can't watch that; it's too violent." Like, we resented our parents for that. We couldn't play Doom. We couldn't. So many video games that were off the shelf for so long.
I can't imagine.
We found a way around it, but
no,
still,
I was like, they gave up on that by the time I was a kid.
Yeah.
I watched Terminator 2 when I was 7 years old.
Listen, you got the best, all right? You should be thanking us for breaking
No, I didn't get the best. I wish I didn't watch that movie. I had nightmares for weeks.
Terminator 2 is an incredible movie, and you should have watched it when you were 4.
Terminator 2 is a great comedy.
3 more years of appreciation and fear.
Oh, my goodness.
So yeah,
real quick side story: The Mummy is celebrating its 25th anniversary.
Oh yeah,
saw that.
And they released it in theaters. So I went on Sunday to see it because I'd never seen it in theaters. I gotta say, that movie is still very
holds
enjoyable.
up.
Still great. Still very enjoyable.
Yeah, it's a great action like comedy adventure film or action adventure. Yeah, no, that's a good one.
It's pretty funny.
I mean, now granted, are there a lot of things that don't make sense in the movie? Yes. There are multiple times Rick O'Connell should have died, like quite clearly.
It's called plot armor.
Makes it great.
Yeah, like So there's literally one scene. So in the end, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen The Mummy, but it's been 25 years. So what have you been doing? When the Pharaoh's guards are taken over by Imhotep, and and Rick is fighting them while they're trying to do Evie and Jonathan are trying to look through the Book of the Living and read out stuff, and he's fighting them. There's one scene where he's turned around, and they have a sword to Rick, and they have 3 seconds just to stab him, and they just hold. I was like, wait a second. He should 100% be dead right now.
Oh, man.
That's great.
It's called plot armor, and nothing can defeat him.
Also, it's called...
One last thing. The movie is way more self-aware than I remember. There is a line in the movie where they're talking to the old pilot, and they're like, "Yeah, you'll probably die," and then Jonathan is like, "Everybody else that's traveled with us has already died." Wow, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Honestly, that time period of 98, 99 has some fucking banger movies. Like The Mummy, The Matrix, and there's a few more. I think the Titanic?
That's it.
Titanic's not an action adventure.
Oh, I mean like very, very popular,
Oh,
really
gotcha, yeah.
entertaining, good movies. And with a little bit of self-awareness, like you know how like early 90s movies are, a lot of them are just bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It feels like the last part of the 90s, I think, like Arjuna said, became. It's like AI woke up. They became self-aware, and then they still had that style of the 90s, but better. It's a little faster, and the self-aware comedy in there as well. Good shit.
Star Wars.
I mean, you could like bring
self-aware.
it back to Star Wars into this. Like Disney has owned Lucasfilm and the Star Wars IP now for I think
almost 10 years, right?
10 years or something. No, 12 years. They got it in 2012.
The first movie came out in 2015.
2015, yeah. So we're next year celebrating 10 years since The Force Awakens. Way to feel old. But like when they started, like, you know, The Force Awakens was a great film. Everybody loved it at the time, and then it just didn't really age well. But like something like Tales of the Empire only came about because they started, right? Like they started the Clone Wars with that terrible animated movie, and that was 10 plus years ago now. And they've come so far in terms of like it, like they became self-aware of what they needed to do, but they had to go through like the growing pains of really bad storytelling.
Yeah.
Chris, have you ever seen the Star Wars animated Clone Wars movie?
No.
It's one. They actually repurposed it as an arc in the first season of the Clone Wars. It's with the Jabba's child, the Hutt, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard you guys talk about this.
And Ahsoka calls him Stinky, and they have to like get him, get him back, and that's the entire premise of the movie.
Yeah,
The animation looked like it was done on like Windows 95. Ahsoka is in that movie maybe the most annoying Star Wars character there's ever been.
Yeah,
and the plot
that's a
is
true
like
redemption arc.
And the plot is, I mean, Ahsoka's arc's been great, and the plot is truly, even for the Clone Wars, one of the worst.
Wow. I mean, I've heard the way you guys have talked about that movie. In my mind, it's like the stuff of legend at this point. You know, kind of like the Disaster Room, or Artist Disaster, like that level of
or
like,
The Room, right? Yeah,
The Room. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say it's like the Star Wars Holiday Special, which I still have never seen, but that's also like a train wreck. But some people deep down love it, feel like it's. I mean, I understand the
Lauren,
nostalgia
right?
factor.
Doesn't Lauren love it?
She does, yeah.
So it's really weird. It was around Christmas a few years ago, and you know Julian, friend of the pod, we're at work, and he throws it on his laptop, and we literally sat there and watched like the first 45 minutes. There's something almost disturbing about it that you can't look away. That's the only way I can.
It's like when you see a car
describe it.
accident on the highway. You're
a little bit,
like a morbid curiosity.
Yeah, and maybe it's not that bad. It's not like it's depressing or disturbing in that sense. It's just more like strange. There's a strangeness to it that makes it, at least for your first time, you're like, what is this? Especially because it's Star Wars as well, obviously. So
Let's get into bold predictions here. So obviously we had Tales of the Jedi.
Can I go first?
Tales of the Empire now. What do you want to see next? If you want to see another tale of something, and
easy.
Try and be somewhat descriptive, but not crazy descriptive.
I want to go first because I know maybe both of them will steal mine.
Sure,
go
go
ahead.
for it.
It has to be Tales of the Droids. That's what. has to be
I was
next.
not thinking that. That's a good one.
It has to be. You know, you've done light side, dark side. What's another staple of Star Wars? It is the droids. So I would love to see, some droid characters. There's a lot. I think there's a lot to choose from. I think like maybe one of my top contenders might be B2 Emo from Andor. I think like that's a funny droid that could be fun. Chopper would be another great option to just kind of have some more backstory.
Chopper should get his own 22 episode, 35-minute per episode. Like he deserves his own series.
I gotta say, the most devastating part to me for Tales of the Empire was when R8 blew up. Like R8 was sending that distress signal, and then the ship blew up. I was like, oh no!
Not the droid.
When droids die, it's emotional. They're the most innocent creatures in all of Star Wars.
They're like dogs, really.
It's really.
Droids is a great one. Droids is a great one.
I would love to see a droids one. My only caveat is please no C-3PO.
I mean, he's been done to death at this point. Like
super annoying.
They can't. They should.
Yeah.
I love the droid. The other reason I love the droid one too is because at some point, and maybe we can get Lauren on this. There needs to be some sort of tale where the droids all hook up to a central network, and they decide that their rights. They have no rights, and then they rebel. I'm just saying, if you think about it logistically, if every droid in a galaxy rebelled, it would be worse than the Empire ruling, because every droid's everywhere, and they'd be like, "Oh, where's our freedom?"
So not to be
like iRobot meets Star Wars.
Not to be an uber nerd here, but that did technically already happen in the Star Wars universe
on a galaxy side, on a galaxy-wide level.
It's canonical
on a galaxy-wide level.
Yeah, so it happened thousands of years ago. Whenever the droids did like uprise, that's why there was like droid inhibitor type things. There's the whole removal of like the Sith knowledge. There's a whole bunch of different things that stop them.
Where is that, like a novel?
No, that's like a throwaway line.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. We need to see that. It should be a video game.
A video game would be cool for it.
Yeah. No. So for mine, and I'm going to do it before Ravi steals it, it should be Tales of the Underworld. The crime syndicates, the smugglers. We don't need to do Han Solo, but Han Solo has inspired a whole section of Star Wars, like the Black Sun, and all the other ones that I just that Crimson we know Tide. So much about. Crimson Tide, thank you. So and there's the rogue archetype is strong within Star Wars, just like the droids, just like the Sith, the Empire, the Jedi, the Force users and whatnot. So I think. And just like the droids, I think there's a lot of interesting contenders. A little bit of Andor. You could throw Andor in there.
Cassian Andor.
So
yeah,
Luthen.
So there is already. Are you aware of the new video game that's coming out?
Oh, in August.
Star Wars
Outlaws. Is it GTA 6?
No, Star Wars Outlaws. And it's basically you follow a character as she makes her way through the underworld.
Yeah, but it's Star Wars and it's Disney, and you feel like it's gonna be a little bit watered down. Like that's the tough thing when you have a family-oriented company running this stuff, because there's only so much they can do and get away with. Which and that's probably a good thing. It's the widest appeal, right? You want kids to be able to enjoy this stuff, because let's be honest, Star Wars is for children first and foremost, us second. But yeah, so anyway, Tales of the Underworld. Ravi, there's one more logical one.
No, I'm going to go with the non-logical one, just to, add some spice into our lives here.
Tales of the Spice.
No, that would be Dune.
Dune.
No, we're going to do Tales of the Mandalorians.
Yeah, okay, no, you took it. Tales of the Mercenaries.
No, that
again another.
That would be Tales of the. That would be part of Tales of the Underworld, I would imagine. But I like the idea of taking something and beating it to death, and that is exactly what Tales of the Mandalorians would be, because it's like,
and it just follows Mando.
No,
it's just a Mando.
There are definitely interesting stories there, right? Like I doubt. The Tales series, if I had to imagine, they need to be kind of placed, if you will, around the films. So they're not necessarily going to jump thousands of years, hundreds of years outside of the realm of the films.
Not yet.
Not yet, but what would be cool is like, we know of, was it pre-Vizsla, the Jedi Mando, like a small arc about them. Maybe it's solely about how this stupid Darksaber was created.
That'd be cool.
And then maybe you jump up super far ahead and you see like peak Mandalore when like it was at its peak, and maybe that entire arc is its peak to the fall, or peak Empire, and then the future, like jump far into the future. I think that would be kind of a cool and interesting thing, because the Mandalorians, as we know, like they are a big part of the galaxy, and they are kind of this weird neutral enemy frenemy thing of Jedi and Sith. So like I would say they're like the third big thing, if you will, that kind of dictates and controls the galaxy in some way.
There is one more. 6 episode, each one 10 to 15 minutes is perfect. Tales of Click Clack. What happened to that motherfucker with drawing a boob everywhere, trying to warn the galaxy of the Death Star, and everyone's like, stop drawing titties on the walls. He's like, I'm trying to warn you, but you don't speak my language.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing is Disney can do this for a long time. They could do Tales of the Clones, Tales of the Bounty Hunters, Tales of, like, they could just go for a bunch of different ones. Tales of the Skywalkers if they wanted to.
No. That should not be done. Because we have it. Like, it's called episodes 1 through 9.
Yeah, but like, but wouldn't people want to see Kylo before he became Kylo Ren when he was
Tales of Ren?
Tales of
Knights
of
they
just go to a Ren fair. Have a beer. What do they do? All I know is you drink at a Ren fair. I don't know if you. What else do you do?
I think you have you. That's a good question. I don't know. I've never been.
I went once, and all I remember is just having beer, and then
it seems like people dress up.
Yeah,
right?
people dress up, and then it's like a massive cosplay of like the Renaissance medieval times.
We're going on Sunday
to the Ren Fair.
Yeah.
Are you gonna dress up?
Yeah, he's gonna wear a maid's outfit.
In theory,
you should wear a jester outfit.
Do you want to? Do you want to borrow my Mandalorian outfit? You can just wear that.
You should get some Joker makeup on you and be like, I'm a jester.
That would be really funny. Someone did like a crossplay of like a jester, the Joker, like Heath Ledger.
Actually, be kind of scary.
That would be super scary.
Pretty good, really good Halloween costume.
Christian, I got your Comic-Con costume right there.
Ooh, nice.
All right, I think it's that time, kids. I think it's time we find out if we actually all enjoyed it, or if we just spend 40 plus minutes not enjoying it. So,
oh my.
Judah, you can kick us off.
Ravi. Was Tales of the Empire good?
In the hour and a half it took me to watch it, I went through many emotions, all of which were positive. So therefore, yes, it was good.
Emotional damage.
Christian, was Tales of the Empire the place to be? Good.
Book your reservations now. The Empire. Yeah, it was really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. All 6 episodes were really good. I personally just felt more drawn to the latter 3, but all 6 were good. So yeah, Juna, was Tales of the Empire good?
Yes, it was, and I would even go as far to say it was better than Tales of the Jedi. Because reasons. I also, actually, one thing I did want to note for looking back at Tales of the Jedi versus Tales of the Empire, do you guys remember the ordering or sequencing of Tales of the Jedi? They did like an Ahsoka episode first, then they did the 3 Dooku episodes, and then they did 2 more Ahsoka episodes. I'm glad they didn't get like weird like that with this one and just did 3 and 3. Like it just,
I think that was perfect. The perfect way to do it, because you get to see the arc nicely, and as opposed to the Jedi one, you had to go and
the Jedi one felt chronological, I think. Whereas
I think that wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked for this because Barriss feels like it takes place over a much longer period and more Yeah, it's like two different.
No, I would say Morgan's
overlapping
plays over a lot because hers starts, middle of the Clone
That's
Wars,
the Clone
and then
Wars.
goes all the way up to past Episode 6. You know, where the
into the
Empire's
sequel
fallen.
trilogy.
While
that's a good point.
Barriss is definitely between Episode 3 and 4, which again, it's a 15-year, 18-year period or whatever, but it's still a period.
It would have been tough though. It would have been weird. Maybe tougher to do it.
Yeah, it goes Episode 3 to post Obi-Wan, essentially.
Yeah. And also, to me, Tales of the Jedi, it made sense they went that way because Dooku and Ahsoka, they're connected. Whereas Morgan and Barriss are less connected, if that makes sense. So,
I mean, they say
I personally liked Tales of the Jedi, the way they did it. But I like that they didn't do that for Tales of the Empire.
I mean, they both work for the same group, the Empire.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for us here. And was it good? As always, thank you for checking out our pod on Star Wars Tales of the Empire. You can find the full episode on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/wasitgood. Check us out on social media, on TikTok and Instagram at wasitgoodpod. New pods on Saturdays. Till next time, so say we all.